This video today is about Mavenclad, the treatment, the side effects, and the results from my perspective as an MS, a person living with MS. My name is Jen DeTracey, and I'm here today to share with you information about my experience with Mavenclad, again, from the treatment, side effects, and the results. Right now, it's 9 months since I started taking Mavenclad. I started taking it in January of this year, and I'm in the first year of my treatment. So my name is Jen DeTracey. I have a whole pile of videos about my experience with Mavenclad. I've documented my journey. So if you're interested in following, definitely press that red button and subscribe. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about, first of all, the drug treatment. So if you've already been approached by your doctor about doing Mavenclad, and you can't find a lot of information, then this is a good place to start by watching this video. Also, there is an amazing Mavenclad group on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, check out Mavenclad for MS. It has helped guide me on this journey and has given me a lot of information that I didn't know about Mavenclad, and it has reduced my anxiety about making the decision, number one, to take the medication, and also what to expect. So what I'm going to share with you today is my experience, and then just some insights from others as well. So check this out. So in terms of the treatment, the drug treatment, one thing to consider is that this medication, Mavenclad, is specifically for relapse-remitting MS. And it's there to stop progression. So often when people hear about Mavenclad, they are hopeful, of course, that it will cure or improve their conditions with MS. And I just want to tell you right now, I have not experienced that at this juncture in my journey with Mavenclad. Some people have, and other people have had, a really difficult time with medication. So we'll talk about side effects in a minute. What Mavenclad does, and I'm just going to talk about it from a very simplified perspective, because that's what I understand, is that what it does is that it kills the B and T cells in the body. So the Mavenclad, when you take it, it's what I call a micro dose of chemo, very, very small, and it just kills the cells in the brain that attack the MS. And the hope is that then it produces new, even better rockstar cells that don't attack the MS in the brain. And that's why the treatment is taken over a 2-year period. Now, really, a lot of people gravitate towards Mavenclad because it's very simple to take, because you just take it for 5 days, and then 5 weeks later you take another 5 days, and the dosage is based on the weight of your body. So it's very customized to the person. Now that sounds really simple, because if you've been taking injectables, or if you have to take pills twice a day, as I have in the past when I was taking Tecfedra. I did Tecfedra for almost 2 years, and I will make another video talking about my journey with Tecfedra. Put it this way, I stopped after 2 years. I had a lot of issues with Tecfedra. So with Mavenclad, people like to take it because it's easy. You don't have to remember your pills all the time, no injectables. And, it can be, as my neurologist said, it's really intense on the front end when you're taking it, and then it tapers off, whereas other medication has to build up in your system. So I found that very interesting. So I thought, what the heck? I'm going to go on this Mavenclad journey. I'm going to give it a try and see what it can do for me. I live with generally on a day-to-day basis with quite a bit of fatigue. I call it heaps of fatigue. I don't know if any of you can relate. Write comments below if you can. And so I just thought, of course, my little hope was that, maybe this will improve the fatigue. And on the ironic side, as we step now into section number 2, which is side effects, and actually before I talk about the side effects, I just want to tell you, you might want to stick around for watching the whole video, because I'm going to have a bonus section on tips and tricks when it comes to Mavenclad. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up before the end. Okay, so side effects. So one thing I want to talk about first, which ties in with the medication and side effects, is that when the Mavenclad is killing off those cells, which are like the white blood cells, the T and B cells specifically in the brain, it lowers your immune system. And let's face it, when the immune system is lower, and there's more likelihood of getting sick, infections, those are some of the main things that can happen. In fact, I had to postpone my treatment for my first week of Mavenclad because I wasn't feeling well for like 2 or 3 days. And that's important because, you know, when you're going to lower your immune system and your immune system's already low because maybe you've got something else going on, not a good time to start taking it. So make sure, even though you're maybe anxious and you want to get started, make sure you have your body in order to the best of your ability before you start going on this, on your first dosage or even your second round in week 5. So basically it lowers your immune system, so you have to be conscious of that. Some people ask about alcohol. That's been something that people have been talking about on the Facebook group, because people like to have a glass of wine or with their dinner or whatever that might be in terms of their ritual around alcohol or socializing with people at parties. So those factors can come into play. And, you know, really when it comes to Mavenclad, you want to keep your system as strong as possible, and anything that can weaken your immune system or actually cause a negative impact on the medication. You want the medication to stay as strong as possible in your system so that it does the job that it's supposed to do, right? So, you know, it's not that you can't take alcohol, but it's not recommended during the 5 days that you take the medication and then the 5 days again. Now for myself, I'm not really, I'm not a drinker. I rarely drink alcohol. So for me, it's not really, it was never an issue, but I kind of lean on the side of clean body health. So I'd be like, okay, I probably wouldn't take it for the whole, you know, 5 or 6 weeks. Now, it's true that you can feel quite anxious when you go on Mavenclad. I know a lot of people leading up to taking it have been very stressed out. I was stressed out. And truthfully, on the first day I took my medication, I felt huge relief because I was like, I was out of my head and I was actually doing it. And I think that can make a big difference. But I'll come back to that later because that's kind of one of the tips under the bonus. Whoops, just knocking around the furniture. So some of the things that can happen is you can get dry mouth or feel very dry in your system. And that can be a little bit uncomfortable. Definitely stomach or flu-like symptoms can show up. And I felt that during each time that I took it, particularly in the first week, week 1, as opposed to week 5, which is the second round. I felt a lot of stomach stuff happening. Had a lot of headaches in the first round. And so there was some overall physical discomfort happening. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be based on what other people have said about their experience with Mavenclad. And at the same time, there are people that had very little impact, maybe a little bit of headaches for the first day or something like that, and then they were fine. Some people taking Mavenclad work full time. They have even nurses working 12-hour shifts. For me, I work from home. I work part-time and technically self-employed. And so, you know, I just felt, you know, that I needed to really just be aware and notice my body and what I needed. And that's the thing. I think that when you live with multiple sclerosis, and I'm making a generalization that you may or may not agree with, is you become more aware of your body and what's happening. So as you take the medication, you're going to become aware of what the side effects are for you. And then you're just going to deal with it, right? Some people do have hair loss. It's short term. Some people it lasts longer. That didn't happen for me. I know a lot of people didn't have hair loss. So that might be something that you're worried about. Should grow back like any chemo drug does, although this is a micro chemo drug. And there can be quite a bit of fatigue. I definitely felt some fatigue while on the medication, but it wasn't like as much as I expected considering I already have a lot of fatigue. Some people have bruises. You can get infections. Not a good time to go to the dentist, okay? Do not go to the dentist. I waited. It's been 9 months and I finally went to the dentist to get my teeth cleaned. because I didn't want to risk an infection. Vertigo, dizziness, all kinds of stuff like that. So for me, it was mostly headaches, dry mouth, some disruption to my stomach, and a low level of fatigue. Those were the things that I experienced. So let's move on to the third part. We've talked about drug treatment. We've talked about side effects. Let's talk about a couple other aspects of side effects. Timing. So timing about the medication. So you can take the medication in the morning, you can take it at noon, you can take it later in the day, you can take it at night. That's really up to you. The main point is keeping it consistent every day so it can build in your system. What I did was the first week I took it at night. And for some reason, some people said a lot of people said, hey, they were taking it at night because then they were sleeping through the side effects, and they were able to sleep like a rock. For me, I don't know, I'm weird. I had the opposite effect. I could not sleep. I don't know if that was anxiety or if it was just moving through my system in a way that was disrupting me. So I was exhausted because I couldn't sleep. So in week 5, which is the second round of dosage, I end up taking it in the morning, and that worked way better for me. It didn't mean that I wasn't tired, but at least I wasn't awake at night. I was sleeping better. So really, it's a very individual experience. And what really took place for me is, so I took my second round in week 5, and then around week 9, and I was warned about this from the pharmacist, that the fatigue can kick in anytime from like week 7 to 9 kind of thing, because your immune system is at its lowest then. The drug is just like working through you, right? You know, and that's how you know it's working, it's doing something. So what happened was on week 9, I was just slammed with fatigue, and I experienced that for like 2 months. It was kind of crazy. I felt like I was moving through molasses or cement. It was brutal. But, you know, the thing is, when you know that these things are possible, then you can plan for them, right? To the best of your ability. And that's important. That's why I want to give you as much information as possible, because, you know, you might hear doctors talk about it, but, you know, the reality is we know our bodies best and we know what we need. And so when we can share with each other about our experience as people living with MS taking the medication, I think there's a lot of empowerment that happens there. So that's huge. That's pretty much all I want to say about side effects. I think that gives you a pretty good idea. So next I'm going to talk about, what is it that I'm going to talk about? My results. Very exciting, because I just went to my neurologist last week and got my results. So I want to share that with you, and then I'll come back to the bonus tips. So here, I'm just grabbing a little piece of paper here. I've got a little visual for you. So as you might know, and if not, this is important to be aware of, that these B and T cells that the Mavenclad is killing out to bring in new cells that are not going to attack MS in your body, at least that's the intention of the medication, is you're going to do a bunch of blood work. And the first round of blood work you do is a month before you start the medication, give or take. Now, there's a range in which these blood cells called lymphocytes or white blood cells start at. And I didn't know my baseline, actually, baseline being what I was at before I started Mavenclad. I didn't have access to that blood work at the time, and I didn't think about getting it. So the first thing that I was at 2.6, which is super high in a good way, right? Super, super high. So then the first set of blood work I had was at, I think, month 4. And so that's since I started the Mavenclad. And then I noticed my lymphocytes went down to 0.07. Now that is low. I don't know if other people have had lower than that, but for me, this is around the time when I was feeling the heaps and heaps of fatigue. Like, it was brutal, right? And that's why, because the drug was doing its work and I was at that point. And then the next month, ta-da, I was at the same. So of course, there I am for those 2 months dragging myself around, and it's because I was at 0.7. Then as I started to feel a little bit better and it was, can't remember exactly the month, but I went to my neurologist and he said, well, it should continue to improve. And it went up to 0.9, right? So I'm at 0.9, and truthfully, at that point, I was starting to feel my energy come back. So really only up 2 notches on the lymphosets, and there I was having an improvement. So that's like totally cool and really positive. And then last time I went for blood work, so that's like I've had 3 blood works since, right? Actually, what it was is I said I had 2 of these, and then I had at that one, so that's three blood tests post Mavenclad, and then my final one, which was just a bit like over a month ago now, was at 1.0, which actually is on the low end of normal, believe it or not, which is a huge amount difference from 2.6. So I have a long way to climb back up, right? And some people don't climb back up to their baseline because in year 2 they start Mavenclad again. And again, that means you know it's doing your work. So what else do I want to talk about in terms of that? So I did bounce back from fatigue after 2 months. I'm probably at my normal level of fatigue again, or maybe a little bit lower. So I feel hugely relieved about that didn't last any longer. And yeah, it was pretty crabby during that time. And that's the thing. Some people say when they're on Mavenclad, they become people that their family or friends or, spouses, partners, kids don't want to be around. And because it's tough, right? I think it takes courage to go on any MS medication, and in particularly Mavenclad, because it is a new medication on the market, and people are often really excited and hopeful, and it does affect your system and your mental state, but know that should be temporary, right? I was mostly grumpy during the time that I was completely and utterly exhausted. So what else were the results with Mavenclad? So the fatigue bounced back, and then I had my MRI. Now I have a lesion I have lesions in my brain, and I also have one lesion that is on my spine, and it's called the C3. And that was detected about, I'm speculating, it was just, over 4 years ago. And when I talked to my neurologist about it, she told me, because I had moved location, so I have a different neurologist now. She told me that spot on my spine is that with the lesion on your spine, it's harder to, like, the body doesn't repair as easily. And not only that, so the chance of having that lesion go away or disappear on a spine versus a brain for some reason is substantially less to nothing. So I've never expected anything to happen with that. Well, after I got the results last Monday about my MRI, basically on the report it said that lesion on my neck, which is really the spine, is less conspicuous. That's right, less conspicuous. So progress, right? Now, I don't feel that my mobility has changed at all because I am able-bodied and able to walk and move around. So I haven't noticed any significant change, but I have to say from a headspace that it feels great. Like, I feel really happy about that, because for any of you that have had a decline in your mobility, you know what it's like to go through the loss of that, and how that can be, how there can be a lot of deep grief, I imagine. I've had a lot of grief, and I haven't even gone through that in my journey with MS. And lastly, you probably want to hear about my brain. So basically, there were no new lesions on my brain. So reduction in the one on my C3, less conspicuous, so probably not shrinking, but maybe not as visible. So hey, I think that's awesome. And no new lesions in my brain, so yay! This is good. The drug is doing what it's meant to do. So let's just jump now to tips and tricks, and then I'll wrap up. So here's the thing. I mentioned anxiety. That is very common. And I'm not alone in people sharing that basically once they start taking the medication, they calm down, because you hear about all the side effects that people can have, and you can get really worked up and you can think about it for months and months until you get proof for the drug. And it can be super, super stressful. So know that once you start taking it, that you're most likely going to feel less anxiety. Number 2, drink lots of water. You may feel very dehydrated, and sometimes people were drinking so much water after taking Mavenclad that they were having to support themselves with some electrolytes. So things like Pedialyte for babies, or making their own electrolyte mix, or drinking Gatorade, or, you know, getting some natural electrolytes in there that can make a huge, huge difference. So if you're feeling that way and you're drinking water and nothing's changing, know that that's important, that you can do that, and that should help balance out your system. Secondly, wash your hands all the time. Your immune system is low. You need to protect yourself. If you're going to be out around people that are sick, wear a mask. I know that sounds crazy, embarrassing, and silly, but there are people doing it. Not to be paranoid, I was super cautious because, you know, I have to continue working, or I want to continue working, so I really had to do self-care. So washing my hands, and now I've gotten to the habit of diligently, when I come into the house after being outside, washing my hands right away. And I built in a habit of being vigilant about that, which in general is a great thing, right? Because we're exposed to things all the time, but when your immune system is down and you're on Mavenclad, you have to be extra special careful. Now, people are asking, oh, can I travel? Can I fly? You know, yeah, I mean, the first time I traveled, I wore a mask on an airplane because it was not that long after taking Mavenclad, and I was worried, right? Do you need to do that? No. But, you know, one thing you might want to consider is always carrying hand sanitizer. And if you're going to a place like on a plane, is like wiping down everything to make sure it's clean. Because, you know, I mean, thousands of people have sat in that seat, right? If you're on a train or you're in somebody's car. So these are things that are really important. Carry hand sanitizer, wash your hands all the time, drink lots of water, even if you gotta pee, because better to let it all out. Rest. Give yourself time to rest. If you live by yourself, it's a different situation. If you have family around, kids, spouse, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, you know, ask for help. Tell that person or those people in your life what you need. If it's your pet, you can tell them to come snuggle with you. Rest as much as possible. Our bodies heal when we rest. So even if you're not sleeping, it's very important. And also, what I talked about earlier, last thing, is avoid alcohol while you're taking the medication during at least those 2 weeks that you're taking it. And if you feel your immune system's really dropping a lot, I wouldn't recommend it, but that's my bias, right? Do what you want. So just wrapping up, we talked about the drug treatment, we talked about side effects, we talked about my side effects, we talked about the results of my MRI, and I look forward to share your results down here. I want to celebrate with you. And know that if you don't have any improvement in your health, that's not what this drug is about. It's about prevention. And that's the game here that we're playing, is about prevention, right? And so that's all I want to say today. Write your comment, share, like, and subscribe. I'm Jen DeTracey. Thank you for being on this journey with me. I look forward to hearing what you have to say because your voice matters. And I'll see you soon.